Welcome to AI and the Cross, a podcast series examining the role of artificial intelligence in the life of the church. Brought to you by SimpRef. Confessional, constitutional, controlled. A confessional, reformed theological AI assistant designed to serve the church. Please subscribe and like our YouTube podcast. Remember to turn on notifications so that you can stay up to date.
Today we are excited to announce our framework model called The Train. The AI and the Cross podcast series is built for Christians as they consider the impact of AI technology on their lives and the world around them. There are many different AI tools available that claim to assist Christians with their walk in faith. Some of these tools are very helpful. However, some are not helpful, and a few are potentially dangerous, especially to the most vulnerable among us. By using the TRAIN acronym, we hope to give you the proper context to better discern which tools to adopt, which to avoid, and when to potentially warn others.
So imagine sitting in your pew on a Sunday morning. The pastor is, delivering a sermon that seems to speak directly to your deepest, most private struggles.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a powerful moment.
Right. The wording is beautiful. It actually brings you to tears. And then maybe a few days later, you find out that the pastor didn't write a single word of it. A machine did.
Oh, that completely shifts the dynamic.
Exactly. Does that change the impact of the message? Like, does a simulated, algorithmically generated prayer actually count?
Well, that scenario gets right to the heart of a massive disruption happening in faith communities all around the world right now.
It really does.
We are looking at this wild intersection where ancient, deeply human theology is just colliding head-on with the cold efficiency of artificial intelligence.
Which is exactly our mission for you today. We are taking a shortcut to understanding this specific collision by doing a deep dive into a collection of essays and white papers. It's a book called AI and the Cross by Thomas Kelly.
And it is a fascinating read.
It really is. Our goal here is to simplify some fairly dense theological concepts so that anyone, regardless of your background, can understand what is actually at stake here.
Right, because it affects everyone in the pews.
Totally. We're going to explore why the rise of AI is being compared to the invention of the printing press and how churches can navigate this without losing their humanity.
And to really grasp the weight of these essays, we kind of have to look at Thomas Kelly's rather unique background.
Yeah, let's talk about him, because he's not just your average theologian.
No, not at all. He is writing specifically from the perspective of the Reformed tradition, which, for those unfamiliar, that is a branch of Christianity that has historically placed a massive, really rigorous emphasis on the deep intellectual study of the Bible.
Right, the ultimate authority of the text is huge for them.
Exactly. But Kelly isn't just a theologian looking at technology from the outside, like guessing how it works. He actually graduated from Covenant College in 1985 in their very first computer science class.
Wait, 1985? That means he was studying code back when computers were like the size of refrigerators.
Pretty much, yeah.
He was working with absolute foundational logic before any of the modern, sleek interfaces even existed.
That's the thing. He was a double major in computer science and psychology, and then he spent over 40 years working in the IT industry.
Wow. Over 40 years.
Yeah, so he truly understands the fundamental mathematical logic of how machines process data. But he also studied the complexities of the human mind.
So he's got both sides of the coin.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when he talks about machine learning intersecting with human faith, he is pulling from decades of practical expertise in both of those fields. It's not just theory for him.
Okay, so let's unpack this core conflict he introduces right at the start. Kelly calls it the incarnational crisis.
The incarnational crisis, yes.
And to understand why AI triggers a crisis, we have to look at the bedrock of the Christian gospel, which is profoundly physical. The cornerstone is John 1:14, the Word became flesh.
And the physical nature of that event is the entire point. God didn't just beam a remote transmission from heaven. He didn't drop a scroll out of the clouds. He chose physical matter.
Blood and bone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Jesus wept real tears. He touched the sick. He physically shared meals. Therefore, Christian ministry, if it's following that model, requires actual human presence.
The flesh and blood are not optional.
No, they are the medium of the message.
So, listening to you explain this lack of physical presence, it really makes me think of those Yule log videos people play on their televisions during the holidays.
I love those. But yeah, I see where you're going.
Right, so AI trying to do ministry is basically projecting a high-definition video of a fireplace onto your TV screen.
Yes.
It looks like a fire, it crackles, the colors are perfect, it mimics the real thing flawlessly, but it generates absolutely zero heat.
Zero heat.
If you are actually freezing in your living room, that screen is entirely useless to you.
That analogy perfectly illustrates the theological concept of the imago Dei, the image of God.
Tell us more about that.
Well, in this tradition, humans are created with reasonable and immortal souls. They possess moral agency and the capacity to commune with their creator.
Which a machine obviously does not have.
Exactly. AI, no matter how sophisticated its conversational abilities become, is fundamentally just a tool. Theologians would call it a secondary cause operating under God's providence.
So it's a man-made artifact.
Right. At its core, generative AI is just complex pattern-matching software. It generates statistically likely outputs based on massive data sets.
It's math, not magic.
Yes. It has no consciousness, no soul, and it definitely cannot experience actual empathy.
So it's not a rival being. It's basically a very complex hammer.
A very complex hammer, I like that.
But acknowledging that it's just a tool brings us to the major tension of the book. Pastors and church workers are, frankly, notoriously overworked.
Oh, absolutely. The burnout rates are staggering.
Right. Congregations have endless, exhausting needs. So if a machine can write a sermon outline, format a newsletter, or generate a counseling script in 3 seconds, the temptation to rely on it is overwhelming.
It's a huge temptation.
So how do church leaders use this powerful tool without accidentally letting it take over the heat of human ministry?
Well, Kelly addresses this exact temptation by proposing a set of boundaries. He organizes them into an acronym called the TRAIN framework.
TRAIN.
Exactly. It functions as a safety rail to ensure that AI remains a servant to the church and never becomes a substitute for the shepherd.
Okay, so let's walk through that. What's the T?
The foundation of this framework starts with T for transparent.
Which ties directly into the 10 Commandments, right?
Yeah.
Specifically the 9th commandment about not bearing false witness.
It does. Kelly argues that there is an implicit sacred covenant of trust between a pastor and the congregation.
Right, an expectation.
Yeah. When a pastor stands in the pulpit, the flock naturally assumes the message they are hearing is the fruit of that specific person's labor.
Their prayers, their personal wrestling with the text.
Exactly. So presenting an AI-generated sermon or prayer as your own original work violates that trust entirely.
Wait, I have to push back on this a little bit because I know what someone listening might be thinking right now.
Sure, go for it.
Pastors have always used study tools, right? They use commentaries, they read historical sermons, they quote other theologians.
Yes, they do.
So how is typing a prompt into a chatbot to help with a sermon any different than pulling a dusty book off the shelf and reading what John Calvin had to say about a specific Bible verse?
That is a great question. The distinction Kelly makes there is crucial, and it hinges on the difference between retrieval and generation.
Okay, break that down for us.
So when a pastor reads a commentary by John Calvin, they are retrieving existing information, they are engaging with the historical thoughts of another human being.
Right, a real person who lived and breathed.
Exactly. And they are evaluating those thoughts with their own mind and deciding whether to share them. AI, on the other hand, creates entirely new synthetic prose.
It's generating from scratch based on patterns.
Yes. So if a pastor asks an AI to write the sermon and then simply reads those generated words to the congregation, Kelly labels this algorithmic ventriloquism.
Algorithmic ventriloquism. Wow. That is a chilling phrase.
It really paints a picture, doesn't it?
It does. You think you are hearing your pastor's genuine heart, but you are actually hearing a statistical prediction of what a pastor's heart should sound like.
And the danger there is that it creates the illusion of personal study and spiritual growth, while the core work was actually outsourced to a server farm.
The pastor becomes a mere mouthpiece for a machine.
Exactly.
But if the pastor is just acting as a mouthpiece, that creates a massive vulnerability. Like, who is actually responsible if the AI spits out a theological error?
That is a huge problem.
Or worse, what happens when private, sensitive information is involved?
That brings up the terrifying issue of stewardship, which is the R in the framework. Responsible.
Okay, response.
Humans must retain ultimate responsibility.
Yeah.
We cannot blame the algorithm when things go wrong because, again, The algorithm is not a moral agent.
It doesn't know right from wrong.
Exactly. And this heavily impacts data stewardship, tying into the biblical command to respect property and privacy.
This feels like a huge practical issue for the everyday life of the church. I mean, church leaders handle incredibly sensitive human realities.
They do. Imagine a church member confiding in their pastor about a failing marriage, or a struggle with addiction, or financial ruin.
Right, deeply personal stuff.
A pastor cannot take those deeply private details and type them into a public AI chatbot to ask for advice on how to counsel them.
Oh, absolutely not. That data is a sacred trust.
Yes. Feeding congregational secrets into a consumer-grade cloud system is a profound violation of pastoral responsibility.
Beyond just the privacy of the data, Kelly also warns about what he calls the idol of efficiency.
Oh, this is such a good point in the book.
It is. We are so conditioned by modern technology to want everything to be faster, smoother, and completely free of friction.
We want the shortcut.
Right. But the struggle itself is the point. The act of sitting in a study for hours, wrestling with a difficult text, getting frustrated, praying for clarity, that friction is actually what shapes the moral character of the pastor.
The efficiency of AI becomes a trap. It offers transactional ease, but it costs the pastor their sanctifying labor.
Wow. Costs them their sanctifying labor.
Yeah, as the old saying goes, the word is supposed to study the preacher while the preacher studies the word.
I love that.
If you use AI to skip the struggle of preparation, you are simultaneously skipping the spiritual formation that happens during that struggle.
Speaking of that formation, what happens when a leader actually fails in that duty? Or when the machine they relied on teaches something false?
That requires accountability, which is the A in the TRAIN framework. Accountable.
Makes sense.
In the Reformed tradition especially, church governance requires strict accountability. When a pastor is ordained, they take solemn vows before God and their community.
They promise to be faithful.
Yes. And they can be formally disciplined or removed by the church if they teach heresy or act unethically. Ultimately, they believe they will stand before the judgment seat of Christ.
And an algorithm cannot take a vow.
No, it cannot.
It can't feel remorse, it can't repent, and it certainly cannot be disciplined by a church committee. You can't excommunicate a chatbot.
Exactly. Therefore, Kelly insists that every single AI output used in a church setting must have a human owner.
A human owner, someone to hold the bag.
Yes. There must be a flesh and blood leader who steps up and takes full responsibility and blame if that output is wrong, misleading, or harmful. You cannot hide behind the machine and say, oh, the chatbot made a mistake.
So if the human must remain the owner and the master, the AI has to be kept strictly subordinate, which leads us to the I, right?
Yes, the I stands for instrumental. It is an instrument.
And reading through the text, here's where my mind went trying to visualize this.
Okay, let's hear it.
You can use a hammer for a lot of different jobs around the house, right? It's a handy tool.
Oh.
You could, theoretically, use a heavy steel hammer to open a delicate glass jar of honey.
I mean, you could, but the results would be disastrous.
Right. You'd have shattered glass mixed with honey everywhere. It would be a mess.
A total mess, yes.
Just because a tool can do something like generate a beautifully worded pastoral prayer or write a comprehensive 5-point sermon doesn't mean it should be used for that purpose.
Exactly.
AI is the hammer. You have to keep it away from the delicate honey of spiritual discernment.
That is a fantastic analogy. And to apply that rule practically, Kelly uses the phrase epistemic humility.
Epistemic humility. Okay, that sounds like a dense academic term.
It does, but it basically just means having the modesty to admit what we and our machines fundamentally cannot know or do.
Admitting our limits.
Right. The church has to recognize the strict limits of technology. In theological terms, AI is an instrument of common grace.
Let's break down that distinction for the listener. Common grace versus special grace.
Sure. So common grace refers to the general blessings God gives to all of humanity, regardless of their faith.
Okay, so things like agriculture, medicine, mathematics.
Yes, and technology falls right into this category. AI is a tool of common grace, much like a tractor or a calculator. It makes human labor easier.
Got it. And special grace.
Special grace refers to the specific redemptive work of salvation and spiritual wisdom. A calculator cannot dispense salvation. A tractor cannot forgive sins.
Right.
We must have the epistemic humility to keep our tools in the realm of common grace.
Okay, so if AI is strictly an instrument of common grace, what is the absolute hard line it cannot cross? Like, what is the final letter of the framework?
The final letter is N, which stands for non-pastoral.
Non-pastoral.
Yes. Kelly argues that AI is categorically barred from the cura animarum, which is a Latin phrase meaning the care of souls.
The care of souls. So it has to stay out of the messy human stuff.
Exactly. It must remain strictly non-pastoral.
Hmm.
It cannot preach because preaching is understood as a spirit-empowered event happening between a called human herald and a physically gathered people.
It requires a soul speaking to souls.
Right, and it cannot administer the sacraments. As one of the essays bluntly points out, a server farm has no hands to baptize anyone,
Obviously not.
and it cannot perform pastoral counseling.
Because it can't actually care. Let's contrast a chatbot with incarnational ministry for a second, because this is so important.
Yeah, let's do that.
Biblical shepherding requires bearing actual burdens. It commands leaders to literally weep with those who weep.
Yes.
An AI can easily output the text string, "I am so sorry for your loss, my heart is breaking for you." But it is a simulation. It feels absolutely nothing.
Nothing at all.
It cannot drive to the local hospital at 2 a.m, sit at a congregant's bedside and hold their hand in the silence while they grieve.
And that physical presence is not just a nice traditional bonus to Christian ministry, it is the absolute core of it.
It's the whole point.
The Apostle Paul writes in 1 Thessalonians about sharing not just the gospel message, but our own selves.
Our own selves.
Yeah, you cannot share a self if you do not have one. Relying on an AI for spiritual comfort isolates the individual. It turns the deeply communal act of counseling into a lonely question and answer session with a glowing screen.
That sounds incredibly dystopian.
It is. True pastoral care integrates a hurting individual into the physical breathing community of the church.
So, bringing this down to the ground level, what does this all mean for the everyday church member or staff person listening right now?
That's the practical question.
We've drawn all these hard lines: no preaching, no counseling, no spiritual discernment. Where can the church actually use this technology? Because, Kelly isn't suggesting we throw our laptops in the river and go back to quill pens.
Not at all. He actually sees tremendous potential for AI to handle the crushing administrative burdens that frequently lead to pastoral burnout.
Okay, so what are the lawful ethical uses?
They are structural and organizational. For example, an AI can instantly format complex church bulletins. It can assist in translating discipleship materials into multiple languages.
Which is huge for making the church more accessible to immigrant communities.
Exactly. It can act as a high-powered concordance, helping a pastor quickly parse ancient Greek verbs or summarize historical timelines during their study process.
It's a research assistant.
Right. It can organize massive volunteer schedules or draft routine, mundane emails.
Basically, AI should handle the paperwork so the human beings have more time for the people work.
Exactly. If using an AI to organize a convoluted church database frees up 3 hours of a youth pastor's week, and that pastor uses those 3 recovered hours to visit a sick church member or mentor a struggling student over a cup of coffee.
Then it's a win.
Yes. Then the technology has beautifully served the mission of the church. It has been subordinated to human faithfulness.
That makes perfect sense. Let's pull all these threads together. The framework Kelly lays out requiring AI use to be transparent, responsible, accountable, kept instrumental, and strictly non-pastoral.
The TRAIN framework.
Right. It's basically a navigational chart. It's a guide to ensure that as we adopt this incredible new technology, we are using it to magnify human presence rather than replace it.
Absolutely.
AI is a remarkably powerful servant when organizing data, but it makes for a terrible, soulless shepherd.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, looking at the broad sweep of history, Kelly's ultimate point is that technology should never be feared, but it must never be uncritically embraced either.
We have to keep our eyes open.
Yes, God has always used new technologies to spread truth, from the engineering of Roman roads in the 1st century, to the invention of the Gutenberg printing press, to the global reach of the internet.
He uses the tools of the time.
He does. But the constant throughout all those eras is that he consistently chooses to use weak, solid, breakable human vessels to carry that truth.
Flawed people.
Exactly. The flaws, the tears, the physical exhaustion, and the limitations of a human pastor aren't bugs in the system. They're the design.
That is profound.
They ensure that the power to change a human heart belongs clearly to the Creator
Yeah.
and not to our sophisticated algorithms.
Wow. As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over as you go about your week.
Go ahead.
Think about your own daily habits and interactions with technology. If we continuously condition our brains to expect instant, perfectly formatted, completely frictionless answers from an AI for every minor inconvenience or question in our lives, how might that subtly erode our patience for the slow, mysterious, and sometimes totally silent work of God in our own spiritual lives?
That's a challenging thought.
It is. Real fires, the kind that actually produce heat and warm you when you're freezing, they take time to build. They require friction. They require constant tending. They require you to get your hands dirty.
Yeah, they really do.
Don't settle for the video of a fireplace. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. Keep learning, keep asking great questions, and we will see you next time.
Thanks for watching. Remember to subscribe and hit the like button for us so that we can continue to bring this type of podcast free of charge. Look for these titles in the AI and the Cross series.